And tonight we are going to talk about creating a successful bird feeding station.
Thanks everyone for joining us. So tonight, like she said, we're going to talk about creating everything you need to have a successful bird feeding station. A lot of times when we start feeding the birds, we in the store and we're like, oh, I'm just going to buy a bird feeder and feed the birds. And we hang it out there and put some bird feed in it, and then the birds don't come. We'll have customers walk in here and tell us the story, and then they show us a picture of the feeder. And a lot of times specifically they really wanted the cardinals to come. Most of us have heard the story of the cardinals represent a loved one, and so that's a lot of times what people really want are those cardinals to come. Cardinals can't eat from just any feeder, so a lot of times when they come in, they show us a feeder, and then we have to tell them, sorry, cardinals can't eat from that feeder. So it's not as easy as just grabbing any feeder you see in the store and hanging it up. So that's kind of what we're going to go over today, is different types of feeders to attract different types of birds. Birds not only have a favorite yard to eat from, but they have a favorite feeder in that yard. So I'm sure if you've spent a lot of time watching your feeders, you've noticed that that one cardinal or that one chickadee always comes to that same feeder, and you've come to recognize them as such. So we're going to start off today, and we're going to cover the 12 elements of a successful bird feeding station. So before I go too deep into it, I'm going to mention that in our store, we have a little handout here called the Hobby Guide. If you are in the store, just ask one of our team members for one of these free handouts. It's just a hobby guide. You'll see them behind the counter. Just ask if you can have one. If you're one of our customers who shop online with us, just in the notes section of the order, just put a little note in there. Please include a free hobby guide, and we'll include that. When you get that hobby guide, you're going to see on page 8 these 12 elements that we're going to cover tonight of the 12 steps to a successful backyard bird feeding station. That way you don't have to sit and keep notes all night. It's going to all be right there in front of you. So again, that's a hobby guide. Just ask for it when you place your order, or ask for it in the store. If you have our book, The Joy of Bird Feeding, written by none other than Jim Carpenter, our founder, you're going to find that same information on page 40. Kind of a 2-page spread in here. So if you already have that book, check out page 40 and you're going to find that information there. Okay, so let's get started. So I have behind me a poll system here. I hope you're able to see it. If not, hopefully you'll be able to once we build on it. So as we go through these 12 elements, we're just going to kind of create our own bird feeding station here tonight. So the first thing you want is a foundational feeder. If you're coming out to buy that one feeder, the first feeder you want to buy is your foundational feeder. A foundational feeder is that one feeder that's going to never run dry. It's that one that will hold food for at least a week's worth of food. It's the one that if you're going on vacation, you're probably not going to have to worry about it unless you're lucky and get a nice extended vacation. But usually it's always going to have food. So a couple types that are good would be something like this too. Nice big feeder, going to hold plenty of food. This particular one, I have a weather guard on it. Going to keep your seed dry. Has a bottom tray on it. I mentioned that cardinals can't eat from just any feeder. Cardinals have a short, thick neck. Watch them tomorrow when you're looking at your feeders, and you'll notice that their neck is very short and thick. So they're not able to land on a perch and turn sideways to eat. That's why you often see them eating on the ground. They can't land on that perch and turn sideways. So on this particular feeder, we've added a tray to the bottom. When we add that tray, those cardinals can now sit on that tray and eat from those bottom ports. So this feeder is what we're going to call our foundational feeder. That's the one that's never going to run dry. That could be your foundational feeder, would be what's known as a hopper style feeder. These are the traditional house looking feeders. Opens at the top, fill those up. And then this could also be hung, but this one has a big capacity. We have larger ones as well, but this is going to hold a lot of food. So this is another one that could be a foundational feeder for you too. So a lot of different styles, but when you're looking for that feeder, first feeder, you're looking for that large one, and just think something that's going to hold a lot of food and is never going to run dry. The next feeder on our list is going to be a tray feeder. Tray feeders, I think, are that feeder that everyone who gets a tray feeder, their biggest regret is that they didn't buy it sooner. I know with mine it was. A tray feeder is that feeder that every bird can eat from. Your large doves, your bluebirds, your blue jays, those cardinals, everybody can eat from a tray feeder. The tray feeders are great to have. Definitely, you can see I have a weather guard on this one. Definitely recommend adding weather guards to your tray feeders. Lots of different foods can go in there. And my tray feeders, they're basically just a smorgasbord. As I fill my other feeders, I take a little bit of everything else and throw it in my tray feeder. So some finch food, some bark butter bits, some every type of seed that's out there, a little bit of it gets thrown in my tray feeder. So there's food in there for everybody. It's just a whole little smorgasbord. So you definitely want to have a tray feeder out there. The disadvantage to tray feeders, this morning, that rain we had down here, didn't have much in Charles. I was driving toward La Plata and drove right out of it. So if you're watching us from further north, you may not have had it, but down here we had a lot. So one like this is going to get wet pretty easy. So you do have to watch the weather a little bit more. Obviously, this is not going to work as a foundational feeder. You're not going to be able to fill it up and let it sit for a week. So tray feeders, you do have to be a little more observant about the weather as you're filling those. The weather guard is going to help that a lot, but you do have to be a little more weather aware when you're using a tray feeder. Notice I mentioned that's a weather guard. Nothing frustrates me anymore than walking into a store and seeing them sell these as baffles. Those are definitely not going to keep a squirrel out. The squirrels will come right over top of these. These are only meant to help protect your seed. So number 2 on your list, as you're starting to shop for feeders, think about adding a tray feeder to your mix. And next is a fat and suet feeder. Probably a lot of you are familiar with the typical green suet cages, the little squares that you put the little blocks of suet in there. A lot of people only think of suet for winter, and that is so inaccurate. Right now, the birds are eating more suet right now than they do in the winter months. The reason for that is baby birds get all of their moisture through their food. Suet has a high moisture content. So what you're going to notice is the birds at the suet, and they're going to be there pecking, eating. All of a sudden, they're going to grab a beakful and take off. If you can watch where they're going to, it's going to give you a good clue where you have nesting babies. So start watching for that. So definitely suet. Right now, you want to watch for no melt suet. Obviously, a cake of the regular hanging on the side of your pole system is going to drip and make a nasty mess. But if you look for a no melt variety, they have a much higher melting point, so you won't have a problem with that. We have that in a regular and a hot pepper as well too. With the hot pepper, you won't have issues with the squirrels on that. So that's going to help you. This particular feeder I have, you notice the bottom here. When woodpeckers eat, woodpeckers are a huge fan of suet. When they eat suet, they use, or when they do pretty much anything, they use their tails for balance. So they're going to use this as they're eating. The tail prop is going to allow them to balance. So they'll just hang right here and eat. Little trick with this one, if you have this hanging towards your house and this side's facing, and you want to force them to eat from this side so you can enjoy them, leave the suet in the packaging. Just take the front cover off and drop the entire thing in the cage. That way they have to eat from the open side and you're forcing them to let you enjoy them. So I do that quite a bit so that otherwise they always seem to eat on the back side so you can't see them. So that's a good little trick. This particular one comes apart, so it's nice and easy to clean. So that's an option for suet. If you have, I know some of you are having problems right now with blackbirds, grackles, starlings, all those guys. We hear that like every other customer, if not every customer. This is a great one, kind of made out of resin, but it's made to look like a log. Blackbirds struggle to cling to this. I'm not going to say they can't, because if they're hungry and desperate enough, which the birds are right now, they can cling to it, but it will definitely slow them down. So this is a cool one. Opens at the top, then you drop this suet log in there and gives them a spot to eat from. So that's just another type of suet. And that one is made no melt as well, also made in the hot pepper. So just a different variety of suet. So the third element you need on that feeding station was the fats or suets. If you have multiple feeding stations, I definitely recommend offering multiple types of suet. You will find some prefer the cakes, some prefer the bark butter bits, some prefer the logs, but you'll definitely attract a bigger variety of birds by offering multiple types of suet. That's where you tend to bring in some birds that you wouldn't normally see at feeders. A lot of people think about offering seed at the feeders, but they don't think about offering the suet. And that's where you bring in your insect-loving birds. They are the ones who are big suet lovers. So number 4 is a Finch Feeder. So a Finch Feeder is specifically designed for the finch. Yes, your finch will eat at your other feeders. They love sunflower chips, and they are happy to eat there as well. The problem is, in particular, goldfinch, the beautiful little yellow ones with the black on them, looks like somebody's escaped pet bird. They are also very polite little birds. So they tend to sit here, hang out, wait for an empty perch at the feeder. By the time that perch comes empty and they fly in there, that perch is now full. So they missed a spot to eat. So one of the big reasons for offering an exclusive finch feeder is to cut down competition and allow those finch to have a better chance to get to your feeders. So you're going to increase your finch population if you have an exclusive feeder just for the finch. So you'll see your goldfinch and your house finch eating at this one. And again, that weather guard is going to help to protect your seed. Couple little tricks tricks with Finch feeders. Niger's our only seed that has to be imported to the US. So it has to be heat treated before it arrives. So it's older than most seed by the time you purchase it. You want to make sure that you buy it in smaller quantities. I cringe when I walk into stores and I see them selling 40 and 50-pound bags of Niger. I can promise you it's going to go bad before you use that. We recommend buying it in 5 or 10-pound bags unless you're going through it and if you're going through it quicker than a week or two, then you can upgrade to a smaller size bag. But we really discourage even our 20-pound bags unless you're going through those 10 pounds every couple weeks. Otherwise, buy the smaller bags, let us circulate it here and keep you in fresh seed. You don't want old seed. Goldfinch are very picky little birds, and they will turn up their beaks pretty quickly. So when you fill that, you have that seed hanging out there once a week, grab that feeder, give it a little shake. If that seed gets wet right there, they're going to turn their beak up at that. So definitely, just once a week, give it a little shake so you have fresh seed there at the port. Oh, one other trick, since I was getting ready to hang that on the lower one. On your feeding station, your Finch feeder should always be hanging from your highest hook. Finch prefer to eat from higher up. So you always want to make sure it's hanging from your highest hook that you have on your feeding station. Okay, so next is going to be nectar. I'm sure most of you right now are feeding your hummingbirds. So that's an easy one to fulfill. You're not feeding the hummingbirds, definitely consider getting a hummingbird feeder out there. They are in full swing right now. Easy to do. 1 cup sugar, 4 parts water. These hummingbird feeders are great to use. Nice and easy. So I'm going to put this one on this feeding station. Honestly, you will get more activity by putting it on a feeding station by itself, hanging it from a front porch somewhere away from your other songbirds. You will get more activity if you can move it away from your other songbirds. I have some hanging on my feeding station. I have them spread all over the yard. So for me, it works because I do have several. As you know, hummingbirds love to hoard their feeders. The more you can place in multiple places, the less they can hoard those feeders. So try to place them around. What I did here was, this is a perch that you can hang onto our feeding station. So that's an easy way to be able to add some hummingbird feeders onto bird feeding stations that you already have. So nectar feeders, the hummingbird feeders, orioles, if you have orioles. We typically don't see a lot of orioles here other than migrating. However, over the last couple years, we've been seeing them more during the winter months, and we are hearing more about them staying around this year. So if you're lucky enough to still have orioles around, keep those feeders going, keep feeding them. Grape jelly is a good one as well. Right now, along with the nectar to be feeding them, we've got the grape jelly in stock, along with oranges right now to be feeding those. Which leads to number 6, which is Snacks and specialty food. My favorite for the snacks and specialty foods are our cylinders. So along with snacks and specialty foods is convenience, and it really does not get any more convenient than the cylinders. So cylinders are compact. They are made with a gelatin. In this case, this just pops off. The cylinder has a hole in it, drops over the top. You put the top on. It lasts longer than regular seed. A big plus for us is the birds have to work harder to get their food. So they tend to stay around a little longer, which means we get to enjoy them a little longer. These ones also come in a hot pepper. So if squirrels are an issue, if you're feeding somewhere that's not squirrel proof, you have that as an option too, to keep them out of there. So anything that you can do to make it easier is a great way to go, in my opinion. And again, this one, those cardinals can eat from. You can see this here, but there's a branch around here, which gives a perch to let those cardinals eat from. And then, of course, any of your clinging birds can cling right to that cylinder as if it were a tree. So you'll see a lot of your woodpeckers, your chickadees, titmice, those kind of birds clinging right to this to eat from. And then another convenience food, little dishes like this that you would just fill with any kind of snack foods, which can be those bark butter bits we mentioned, mealworms, peanuts, bark butter. If you haven't tried bark butter, it can be spread right on a tree. These ones, again, for convenience, come in a little tub that you can drop right into that little cup. So anything to make it easy. So that's just one other way that you can feed, and then the next one right onto that perch as well as an option. So number 7, water. Water is extremely important year-round. Obviously, I mean, it's really apparent with the heat right now why they need water. Fresh water. A few things you can do to help out with your water situation is make it moving water by adding things like water wigglers to it, little fountains that you can put in there, or just basically changing the water in that bird bath every couple days is going to help. We also have mosquito dunks, grab behind you, mosquito dunks that you can put in there. It is not dangerous to the birds, safe to them, but that's also going to keep mosquitoes from being able to lay in there. Those water wigglers are going to do the same thing. Moving water, they're not going to be able to lay. Birds are also attracted to movement, so that's going to help entice them in as well. Those are anything like that. We also have water misters and drippers that can be added. So anything like that, it's going to bring movement, it's going to bring the birds, but it's going to keep the water fresher and keep those mosquitoes out of there. Number 8 and 9 is perching branches. That can be as easy as having bushes and trees nearby, places for the birds to land while they're waiting for food in between feeding. They're going to be coming. Some of the birds are going, if you're feeding no mess seed, you're going to see the birds are going to come right there and eat because they don't have to shell the food. So they can hang out at your feeding station and eat while they're there. If it's food they have to shell, they're going to grab it, take it to a bush or tree for safety so that they can shell it. Then they're going to head back for more. So having safe spots nearby for them to perch and land is going to help. Things like that branch we talked about putting on the pole system, that's going to help them out as well. So having The perching branches, vertical landing spots, going off in different directions. This one is a really cool addition, and people are always amazed. If you have our pole system, so this center goes on the pole, and then you cut branches and actually put on the 3 outside pieces. So you actually end up turning your pole system into a more natural environment for the birds. And every time somebody gets one of these, they come back and tell us how amazed they are at the increase in bird activity they see. So it's just one more way to turn it into a more natural environment for them. And this is number 10 on the list, but I honestly think it really should be number 1. It's one of the most important in mine, and that's thoughtful feeder placement. 1, where do you spend the most time watching your birds? If you're spending your time at the back window looking out, that's where you should put the feeder, somewhere where you're going to enjoy it. Not on the side of the house where there's no windows and you're not going to see what's going on. Not in the front yard where you never look out other than when you drive in when you come home. So when you're thinking about where to set up your bird feeding station, take some time and think about where you're going to be able to enjoy those birds. Along with that, you want to think about hazards around them. You don't want to sit it too close to a bush if you have neighborhood feral cats, to allow those cats to hide in the bush and lay and prey waiting for those birds on the feeder so that they can then pop out and grab the birds right off of your feeding station. So if you do have problems with feral cats, you want to make sure your feeding station's out in the open where those cats can't be hanging out waiting there. You want to have those trees and vertical spots we talked about nearby so that there is a place that the birds can get to. I was out in my yard today with the dogs, and all of a sudden this hawk flew right in while I was standing there. If there was no place nearby for those birds to quickly get to, somebody would have quickly been dinner. Fortunately, everybody was able to get quickly to a tree or somewhere because he obviously, even with me standing there with the dog, he was not concerned at all with being out there hunting. So think about those things when you're setting up your station. Where can you watch it? Where are the birds going to be safe? Think about window strikes. You set it in an open space, what's the likelihood that those birds are going to be striking the windows all the time? If you've got a lot of windows there, then you actually need to bring those feeders in a little closer to the windows. As crazy as that sounds, that way when the birds are taking off, they're not going full speed. You're going to have some window crashes, but they're not going to hit them so hard. So in that case, bring them in closer, 3 to 8 feet from the window. So they're going to bounce off more gently instead of putting them 20 feet out where they're going to be going full bore when they hit that window. So take some time before you choose your locations and think through those situations. And then 11 is multiple bird feeding stations. The more stations you have, the more birds you're going to have. So by spreading out those stations, setting up multiple ones, you're actually going to see that you'll get more birds. It's also healthier for the birds. Too many birds gathering on one station. If you end up with a bird with conjunctivitis, which basically it's Finch eye disease, but it's similar to pink eye that kids get as soon as they start kindergarten, they come home with all those diseases. If you've got a bird that gets Finch eye disease and you have an overcrowded bird feeding station, there's a good chance that's going to be spread. So by having multiple feeding stations spread out throughout your yard, you're going to get more birds, but you're going to have a healthier backyard bird feeding setup. Those shyer birds are going to be more comfortable coming in. I have mine spread out closer to the woods, some closer to the house. I think I have about 11 bird feeding stations now, spread all throughout the front, side, backyard. And they're all busy all the time. You know, some will be, one is, there's probably a few more than that now that I think about it. A few that I don't really consider feeding stations has nothing other than I've got a couple that have nothing other than those fat feeders I showed you. 2 of them just have double tail crops where it's 2 suet cakes in them. Those are closer to the woods. Those are my attempt to get the pileated woodpeckers in. So those I don't even consider. I don't have to count those since there's only 1 feeder, right? So just putting multiple ones up, spreading them around. Those I put hot pepper on, so I don't have to even add a baffle to those. They have the hot pepper suets on them. But just, you know, spreading them around, you're going to see more activity. And then that one gets full. So some of the other birds are, oh, well, let me check these ones out over here. And you're just going to see your population continue to build. And then critter solutions. So you really want to think through those. You know, those, like I said, I don't need baffles because my solution on those is the hot pepper solution. My ones that are up closer to the house, I have baffles on all of those. I think there's about 5 that are close to that, 6 that are close to the house in the backyard. Those all have raccoon baffles. Started out with squirrel baffles, then the raccoons found them. So we switched to raccoon baffles. Now I try to encourage people, just jump straight to the raccoon baffles. Actually, the one on this pole, if you can see it, is a shorter one. It's a squirrel baffle. But then this longer one is going to keep those squirrels and raccoons out of it. So think about those solutions at the time you set it up. And that way you defeat those squirrels or raccoons before they become a problem. And actually, once I defeated them, then I felt sorry for them. So now, yeah, I feed all those critters too, but they're not destroying my feeders. They're eating our wildlife blend, which is a much cheaper seed, peanuts, corn, things like that. Way cheaper. They're not destroying feeders, and we all live happily ever after. I already talked about the cat problems. Birds can be enough. Talked about those. If you're having problems with blackbirds, you want to have a plan for those as well. Things like safflower, putting cages on feeders. That large feeder, the one we talked about, that we were going to use as our foundational feeder. I have a cage for it. As soon as those blackbirds move in, I drop the cage over the top of it to keep those out. My other large one, I have safflower in it. Those blackbirds aren't able to crack it. So have those solutions in mind, know what you're going to do when they become a problem. And so it's not as frustrating then when it does happen. The same on those cylinder feeders, we can either cage them or we can put safflower cylinders on those. So if you're having any of those problems and you have feeders, snap pictures of them. Stop in either our Lexington Park or La Plata store, and we can absolutely help you solve those. It really is easier if you bring us pictures of what you have, what feeders you have. If you got them from somebody else, still bring us pictures because it may be that we may not be able to cage them, but then in that case, we know what kind of foods we can put in them to try to solve it with food. So that is our 12 elements of a thoughtful bird feeding station, how to think through to get you the most bang for your buck. So let's go open it up for questions now.
Okay, I'll do these a little bit out of order. You had shown an Oriole feeder.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Joyce and Kathleen, who I will say live in West Virginia, so this is not applicable to the rest of us. They still have male and female Orioles visiting them, and it's been.
And they will probably keep theirs all winter.
Lucky.
Yeah, in West Virginia, and that they typically keep theirs all winter.
So there were a couple of questions about squirrels, because that's something that we
Of
always.
course.
Okay, so squirrels love most of the feeders too. How do I deter the squirrels from eating the bird seed instead of them eating the corn cobs that I put out for them? And there was also a question about suggestion for, well, here, I'll have you just speak to that in general.
Okay, so to keep the squirrels out, the key is your bird feeding. Your bird feeders need to be hanging at least 5 feet. The bottom of them need to be at least 4 to 5 feet high. And then you put a baffle below that. And then you need to have 10-foot clearance around it. So the problem is most of those bird feeder poles that you're buying in the big box stores are meant for hanging plants. They're not meant for hanging bird feeders from, because they're way too low. So the bottom of a bird feeder should be about 4 to 5 feet high. So when it's 4 to 5 feet high, we can put a squirrel baffle under it. Squirrels can jump from the ground straight up 4 to 5 feet, just from the ground straight up. So that's why we need that baffle at 4 to 5 feet. So they can't jump above it and they can't climb around it. And then we need 8 to 10 foot clearance around it, because that's their horizontal jump. So that's the best way is if you can defeat them with a pole. If you can't defeat them with a pole, then hot pepper products are one way. I will tell you, not all hot pepper products are created equal. I used hot pepper products for years and they did not work. When WBU created their hot pepper products, I tested them for them. I will tell you, they were hot and they did the job. When I first tested them, they didn't come in a bag, the loose seed. So we had to scoop and pour, and that would get up all, you would inhale it. It was horrible. Fortunately, now the loose seed that we sell to the customer, it comes in a pour spout, so you're not inhaling it. My absolute favorite feeder is this squirrel-proof feeder. This one truly does the job. I have had this for about 7 years. The squirrels are too long to hang beyond it, so it closes off. It's made of resin, so they cannot chew through this one. It gives them no reward because the ports completely close off. This one, this is our eliminator, and this one truly, truly does the job. You really have to watch with squirrel-proof feeders. It has to be something that truly takes the reward away. If it's one that closes, but they can still shake it out, it's not going to stop it. They will tag team. Somebody will shake while somebody else eats, and then they'll trade places. So when you find a squirrel-proof feeder, it has to truly be squirrel-proof, or all it's going to do is slow them down. So I caution a bit against squirrel-proof unless you can see that it's really going to shut them down. That one I do swear by. We have another one that I say slows them down. It's a lower price point, but it will slow them down. But with time, they can shake it out and they will learn to tag team. They are not dumb animals. So definitely pole systems, hot pepper products, and then that feeder, I will say, is squirrel-proof, the eliminator.
Now, is the key to the baffle that it's not firmly mounted? Like it has to wobble a little or a bit, right? Is that what helps keep
It
them off
has
of
to
it?
wobble some, but really the key to it is that it's 5 feet. The feeders are above it and then has the 10-foot clearance. That's really the key to it.
I didn't think about, like, we trimmed the branches of our trees above our feeder.
Right.
So I was happy about that, but I ended up having to rearrange my patio furniture because I didn't think about that. Because I caught a squirrel in my feeder one day and I was like, I think he jumped off of the chair. So I had to rearrange my patio.
And that'll happen sometimes. People will come in and it's like they're getting up there and we'll ask for a picture and they'll have moved a decorative rock or moved a bird bath too close or something. And so you really, when we ask for that 10-foot of clearance around it, it has to be 10 feet of everything. Everything. And above, if you've got branches growing overhead, then we need 11 to 13 because they'll use those branches like a trampoline. So it's like, if you can give us that distance, we truly can squirrel proof the pole and it works.
Great. Do you have any other options for deck mounted feeders, because they're not as high up?
Right. So for deck mounted, that eliminator I mentioned and hot pepper products are what I use on my deck. And those work. If you have raccoon issues, we can create a setup for raccoons as well, because I ran into that I had a raccoon visiting. And so we did have to get a little creative because that feeder, that squirrel proof feeder is not raccoon proof. So if you start to have raccoon problems, then we have to go a little higher and a little further out, but we can defeat those too.
I had a question about your Finch feeder. Do other small birds eat at that too, like chickadees and wrens?
Not typically. Mostly it's just the goldfinch, the house finches, and during the winters when we have the pine siskins visit, they will eat there too. Occasionally, we'll have a stray downy woodpecker that will, but that's the beauty of the Finch feeder is that it leaves it for the house or for the finches.
Your squirrel eliminator feeder available online?
It is, yes.
Baby birds get all of their moisture through their food. So
correct.
So do adult birds actually drink out of the bird baths, or do they just use them?
They do. The adult birds do drink from the bird bath. Well, obviously they can't take a water bottle to the baby, but the other concern with baby birds is that it's really easy for them to aspirate. So that's why, like, even if you take a baby bird to a wildlife rehabilitator, I used to be a wildlife rehabilitator when we lived in Virginia, and we do not give any liquids to baby birds because it is so easy to aspirate them. So we only feed them moist food that they could get their liquids that way. So that's why you see them feeding insects because they're moist. They're getting moisture that way.
Well, I happen to be having a little trouble with grackles. They're like tearing apart my suet log and like knocking it out of the feeder onto the ground, and then the squirrel walks off with it. So you had mentioned cages. So I would like a little elaboration on the cages, please.
Yes. Chip is on his way. So we've got a couple different cage options. If you have the little green cage that I had mentioned for Suet before, we do have this one here. I know it's hard to see here, but it can be hung right inside this cage. So that's going to keep them out of it. And as well, we have this one that I have had for many, many years. You can put 2 of the Suet squares in this one. So what we have you do with this one is, just take the front off of this and leave it in the plastic. And so you would do that with both of them. Take just the front off and drop them into that cage that way. So the only place they can eat is right through this way or right through this way. That prevents them from being able to reach in the side, the top, or underneath. And so that double one has worked really well. So I have that one, only pull it out when I need to use it. The downy woodpeckers can get right inside that little cage. The red-bellied woodpecker can get his head in, and then his tongue is long enough, and he uses that tongue like a tool that he can get right in there and grab what he wants. Your little chickadee can get in there. Your bluebirds can get in there. So that one works great. And then, like I mentioned, that log one does fairly well because those blackbirds and grackles struggle to cling. So that does a pretty good job at keeping them out, the one that holds the suet cylinder. So that was this guy right here. And that holds the suet logs. So in this one,
Kathleen mentioned she has that one and it's heavy. The one that
it
you
is
have
a
there.
heavy
It's a little
one,
on the heavy side.
yeah. Yeah, that one does a great job. Our customers love that one.
And you said that the grackles do not like safflower.
Correct. So well, it's a case of they're not able to crack it. They have a gape in their bill, so they're not able to crack it. It's a very hard shell. So cardinals absolutely love safflower. House finches love it. Most of our other birds can eat safflower. Definitely recommend, if you're going to do safflower, that you have a finch feeder going, because those goldfinches cannot eat safflower. You definitely, if you're doing safflower, I would really recommend that you either have a cage feeder going for some of those smaller birds, or that you have a finch feeder going.
Safflower just by itself?
I'm sorry?
Can you get safflower just by itself and then add it?
Yeah, in fact, you only want to feed it by itself. If you have it mixed with other foods, those grackles are going to come and throw that safflower out and eat all the stuff they want. So yeah, that feeder would only have safflower in it.
Ah, okay.
So if it's in a cage, you can feed whatever you normally feed. And then anything that's not caged, you're going to put safflower in.
Safflower just by itself.
Yes.
Okay. Do you ever have to clean the feeders?
Oh, yes. Yeah, feeders should be cleaned at least once a month, once every 2 months at the most. Yes.
How do you clean them? Just water, like rinse them off? Or?
Yep. A big tub of water, soapy water in the backyard's a great way to feed them, or if you've got a deep sink. Soapy water, rinse them really well. Let them dry well before you fill them back up. If they have any mold or mildew on them, mix a little bit of bleach, 1 part bleach, 9 parts water, rinse them well again, let them dry before you fill them.
Talked about hummingbirds. Did you say not to use soap on the hummingbird feeder?
Yeah, we recommend on hummingbird feeders not to use soap. Typically just hot water is good enough. If they're really a little nasty, you can use a little bit of vinegar water, but we recommend not using soap on the hummingbird feeders.
Okay. You had said you have a whole bunch of feeders. Do you need to space them out at all?
I do, because one, I want to spread them out just, for the bird's health. But also, if you've got them too close together, you're not going to be able to squirrel proof them as well. Otherwise, they're going to be coming up one pole, bouncing to another. And squirrels are a definite problem in my yard.
Oh, okay.
There's no shortage of squirrels. I was looking out there the other day, and just in one small area, there were 7 of them.
Oh, wow.
So Joyce had asked the question there about mealworms and bark butter bits. The orioles definitely like bark butter bits and mealworms. We've noticed, especially during the winter months, that they tend to eat more high protein foods. Peanut splits, mealworms, and bark butter bits were a favorite food for them in the winter months. Spring and summer, we see them, they're still eating those foods, but they also tend to add in the grape jelly and the oranges as well. But they still do the bark butter bits, and the mealworms are still a big one for them.
Okay, well, I guess we can talk about what's coming up next. We will not have a program in July. It's a little bit of a slower time for bird feeders, and a lot of people are, on vacation and stuff. So the next time that we have a bird program will be August 18th, and that's going to be Save the Songbirds. Can you give us a little idea about what you're going to talk about, Barb?
Yeah, so we're going to be covering, there's been a huge loss you've probably seen it in the media, a big loss in songbirds over the last 30 years. And so we're going to be talking about some of the steps that we can do to help save them. Probably a lot of you are already doing these steps, but we would like to help use you all to be advocates to help educate other people. So that's actually where the biggest value is going to be, is to help spread the word on how you can help promote saving the songbird.
That sounds great. And that'll be August 18th, which is a Thursday, 6:30, our usual meeting time. I think not everybody's questions. I appreciate everybody joining us tonight, and especially Barb. It's always a pleasure to hear more about all that knowledge that you have about the birds.